So
Are
far.
we?
Hi, everyone. If you were either just tuning in now or tuning in on the replay, welcome in. I'm
Welcome.
really excited for this conversation. This is my first time going live on my Substack. And then, Marina, is this your first time live?
Yes. Yes. Thank you
We're
for
excited.
doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for going
It's
before me.
well, yeah, it's always fun just to experiment with a friend,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
then it gets a little bit more interesting. And we are talking all about Amazon bestseller status today, and a few different hot takes and things like that. And if you are tuning in live and joining us, please definitely, we have the live chat open. So if you've got questions, we may have
Yes.
the answers. But let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Marina, why don't you go ahead and take it away first?
Okay. Hello there, everyone. I am Marina Aris. I founded the Brooklyn Writers Press almost a decade ago. Unbelievable to think that that's been so long. And I've worked with writers from just about every walk of life, every book imaginable, like children's books and poetry, fiction, nonfiction, all of it. It's been quite the ride. And in my work, I've learned a heck of a lot about creating beautiful books and then finally getting those books into readers' hands, which kind of leads us into our conversation today. And so thank you, Ankrom, for doing this and just getting it
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this collab. I'm Karlyn Ankrom. I've been in the book space for 8-ish years, and I kind of fell into it accidentally. I have a social media agency, and I was working with an amazing referral partner in the publishing and the PR space, helping book authors really launch their book intentionally, get those media mentions, and then kind of keep that going. And since then, I've developed the Expert Excellence Engine program, which is taking that dreaded post publication plateau and continuing that momentum. And we were chatting behind the scenes a couple weeks ago around this idea of this Amazon bestseller status and how, like, readers are kind of sniffing it out a little bit. It feels very oversaturated, and maybe I'm alone in this in this thought.
No, you're not. That's why I thought this was a great topic. Really
Yeah.
a
I
terrific
just
topic. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so what are your thoughts around, like, Amazon bestseller? Everyone wants to say that they're an Amazon bestseller, but, like, what's your take on these statuses that people are just chomping at the bit to achieve?
Well, I mean, firstly, I want to say if you want to go after it, I'm not going to dissuade you, right? Certainly, we can all use those highlights. I think from my experience, what I've seen is that we forget how long a haul and how long the journey is for getting that book into readers' hands. And so, what I feel sometimes like that whole process of getting that bestseller status is a little bit of a gamification thing that's going on, and a little bit of a big bump and a huge push and a huge launch, and then crickets, right? And I feel that from my experience, what's really, really working, it's not that that's not a good idea and it's not a good thing to pursue, but I'm seeing again and again and again that some of the things that really do work is that if you are a writer with multiple books, that works. If you are a writer who continues to show up and tell people about what your book is about and why you wrote it and everything that has to do about your motivation, your message, your inspiration, that tends to just work so much better. And when you said sniff it out, I think you're right. I think what people are realizing is we don't have the gatekeepers anymore, and it's such a wonderful, beautiful thing that today readers can access the writers directly, and there's so much magic and power in that I think in some ways just completely outshines this whole bestseller thing. I'm not going to say again do it, I'm not going to say not to pursue it. I just think that over the long haul and over the life of a book, there are these things that we're not spending enough time on and not really giving enough credit to.
I could not agree more. I think, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. I also think it is very much a game that people are willing to pay to play. And I think that's, again, fine and dandy. What I pay closer attention to, and again, that's just probably because we're both, like, in that book space all the time, is, yeah, I want to be able to say I'm a best-selling author. But I always ask, I'm like, oh, congratulations on bestseller. What niche category are you in? because it's
Right.
not like management. It's like management of small businesses that happen to make tacos. Like it's so niche and you're there and gone that fast. And
Yes.
we give so much weight as authors to that because that's the mecca for a lot of us who are independent publishing or self-publishing, or because the New York Times list is pretty much reserved for those traditional published authors that have a certain status. That's a whole nother game. you
Right,
know
right.
a new USA Today status is all based on book sales and all of that, which is all two different games. Most of us are in this Amazon bestseller category niche. And yes, you can become a best-selling author in a super specific niche, and you can say that you are a best-selling author. I love that. And to exactly what Marina was saying, we have to think long term here. You wrote
Right.
your book, document the process of getting your book out there and keep talking about it. That's the thing where I feel like people kind of like fizzle out.
Yeah, they get it. And look, it's exhausting. I mean, no one's going to deny the fact that it's like it's another job unless you have a team in place or a system in place. It does get very, very tiring. But one thing that I did want to go back on, which is really key, is that we have to remember that these stats, even though they do come and they go, when we say go, we're talking hourly. Can you
Yeah.
imagine that you can be a bestseller like, at a certain time of the day and then like an hour later, maybe you're not? I mean, I'm not saying it. I mean, for some books, it
Yeah.
may happen that way, right?
Hmm.
And so that's why I thought when you came up with this topic, I thought it was a really, really good one because it's almost like if we just put it all in perspective, we can start to think about what does work and what you should perhaps be spending a little more time on.
Hmm.
And also not feeling bad if you're not a best-selling author, by the way, you know?
To put it plainly and to use a little bit of saucy language, you wrote a whole ass book. Like, tell people about it. You spent time and energy and sweat and maybe some tears. We're not judging. Like, can we just tell people about it from the beginning all the way to there is no end, right? You've kind of signed up for a lifelong commitment
Right.
to talk about your thing, and it just isn't here and gone and just sits on the shelf behind you collecting either actual dust or in your computer collecting digital dust. It's really important that we continue the momentum because, again, this might be a hot take, maybe, I don't know. Amazon bestseller status is easier to achieve in some regard than author authority. Thoughts? You agree?
Interesting. Oh, I like that. I
You
like that.
agree?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think what you're kind of alluding to really is that it's less about just sort of a task to do, right? Like just showing up and talking about the book. It's actually about something a little bit more human than that, like a little bit more
Mhm.
simple, right, than
Mhm.
that. Where how do you get the author and the authority? It's really by just number one being your first. I mean, look, let me step back for a minute. This is live, so this is not going to be perfect, folks. But what I will say is this is that from my experience, everything that you do as a writer, as a published author begins with you. It's all about you in the
Mhm.
beginning, all of it. And that's a wonderful thing because that's where a lot of magic happens, right? But then the minute you're published, guess what? That's when, if you can do one simple thing just to start, shift your perspective from author-centric and all you to your reader, right? In how many
Mhm.
ways can you make a reader really excited about what you've written or interested? Forget excited, just interested, right? And remember that we're all humans connecting with humans. Like, what is the human thread? And that really is the key to what happens and works over the long term versus the short Amazon bestseller quick hit, right?
Yeah.
So again, not going to say this is not a wonderful thing. If you're a bestseller, congratulations. It's well earned, I'm sure. But for all those writers or soon to be authors out there who are really stressed out about this whole thing about I need to be a bestseller, I need to succeed in this way or that way, success as an author is not necessarily just being a bestseller. There are so many more facets, to look at and to consider.
I love that perspective and I love that shift. I'm constantly telling authors, especially in that post-publication journey where they're like, okay, like the launch is done, my status, like check, check, like we check the
Right.
boxes. And
Right.
they're like, okay, now I need to tell them about this and about that. And it's like, no, no, no. You don't need to tell them, you don't need to tell at them, like talk at them. How can you make them part of the conversation? How can you, to what you just said, flip the perspective and have the content be not about you, but about them, about solving their pain, about
Yes.
giving them the solution? And I always tell people, authors, thought leaders, all of that is, if you are on the fence about showing up in a space like this, which feels super vulnerable, right? It feels really great.
Sure.
But you also want to, have that connection point with your audience, because and even in an AI world, people are craving human connection. People do
Yes.
business with other people. So if you can let them in, if you can be just a smidge vulnerable, and
Right.
sharing your stories and sharing the solutions you have, because if you don't talk about any of that, how on earth will anyone find you? And I think
Yeah,
it's super
absolutely.
cool in today's world that, like,
Yes.
we can show up like this and share whatever we want for free, mind you. The only currency here exchange is time.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
Which can be
I just think
valuable.
it's super cool, that we can elevate that in today's world. And, you know,
Yeah.
bestseller or not, you still have something to share. Um,
Well, the reason I agreed to do this, share my vulnerability with you, Carlin, and with
yeah,
everybody else is that I do think that together, based on our combined experience for so many years now, I do think that we both really fully understand that for authors, it can get very confusing in the sense that books are products and products are marketed. And I think that's why the whole world is really struggling with marketing, by the way. It's just that at the end of the day, whatever we put out there that needs a dollar to get exchanged in exchange for it, it kind of gets confusing because you're thinking, I have to market this thing like a product. And while that may be true, books are a different animal in that they're also so much more than that, right? And so I know that from your perspective, the work that you do, I know you really consider the authors you work with. And from my perspective, I'm also thinking about like, well, how do you g- n- get rid of the stress, get rid of the confusion,
yeah,
get rid of all the product based thinking, and instead start thinking about like, well, what's the service that you're doing with this book? Because think about it, even if you're educating, entertaining, or inspiring someone, you're still in essence serving the reader,
yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
so maybe it's that shift, and I hope that this conversation that you and I are having, if nothing else, gives people a different perspective, because it really is a shift in perspective that starts to change so many things for in terms of making it more fun, less stressful, less confusing, and most importantly, effective, right? So shift
Yes,
in perspective, I would say, is kind of the first place to start.
absolutely. And also she said one of my favorite words, fun.
Fun, yes. I always tell people, like, "Hey, if you're not enjoying this, like, why do it?" Like,
Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
enjoy it. You have to I mean, that's the beauty of not being AI, right? Like, all of our everything that we feel, good or bad, we can transfer to everybody else. So
Exactly, that part. And
right,
I mean, that's
right.
why, like, one of my core values in life and business is joy. I'm like, if it
Yeah.
doesn't make me
Yes.
feel any sort of joy, then the answer is easy. The answer is no.
Yes. Yes,
You
yes, yes.
know?
I love that. I love that. Really.
So,
So
can we go back to like, the
yes,
book
yes.
isn't the product kind of mindset shift? Because I
Mhm.
think that deserves a little bit more, like, parsing out a little. Like, for me, when I think, like, the book is like an asset, yes, but it's how you position the book from, like, that marketing level, uh, to be almost the key that opens the door to whatever the opportunity is. And that's why I'm always asking clients, I'm like, "Okay, you wrote this book. has the goal of the book shifted or changed since you wrote it or since you published it? Because sometimes it's like, well, no, I'm just here for book sales. Great. Good for you. I love that so much. What I'm really, the people that I love working with are those that are like, okay, this is an asset. This is a lead driver. This is the key that opens the opportunity to stages I want to be on, to, podcast guesting I want to appear on, or clients I want to have in my Rolodex. So for you, is that kind of how you have heard from authors, of the ones that work with you from a publishing standpoint? Is that what they're thinking of, or is it more like, no, this is like a legacy thing? Like, what are you
Oh,
hearing from
well,
your
what you're talking about then is there are different writers, right? Different authors.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so
I'm
that
thinking
to me
nonfiction.
sounds, yeah, to me that sounds more like, yeah, the thought leader. And yes, the thought
Yeah.
leader, I think for the thought leader, the book is way better than a business card in that it does open up all of those doors. And
Mhm.
yes, for nonfiction authors, and let's just make the point clear, nonfiction authors have an easier path forward always,
Yep.
because, like it or not, wealth, finance, relationships, health, all of that, those things sell always. And
Yep.
people are the best advocates for getting a new perspective out there, and therefore thought leaders and all the rest. I mean, they just do better. It's easier for them. And then when
Mhm.
it comes to our fiction and poetry and children's book authors, what I will say is that from my perspective, it depends, right? Like fiction authors, I think, just want to be read. They want a readership. They want that base, and that makes a lot of sense. And they certainly can get it if they're good writers, right? It just takes time.
Mhm.
And all the other writers, this is, I mentioned earlier, success is not just a bestseller list. And I think that you and I have met all kinds of writers, and for different writers, it can be so different. So some authors will say, I absolutely need the bestseller status. I want the cachet of this. I want this many readers. And that's all well and good, right? And it's all valid. It's all valid. This is your career. So whatever is going to make it worth it for you, that's your call. And people like Karlyn and I just want to support that. Um, so yeah, you and I can talk about it all we want, but at the end of the day, we know that they're all so different, right? People want different things, but books
And I
can
think
be
that's
the thing.
okay too. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
get wrapped up in feeling like, to your point, like that pressure
yeah,
of, well, I want to be a bestseller. Do you need to be a best-selling author in order to be successful in your thing? In order to reach your goal that you want over here, do you really need to be a bestseller? And if the
right,
answer is yes, I love it. If you're doing it for the accolades, great. I
right.
think that's fabulous and it's
Yeah,
well earned. But again, I feel like people put so much value on it, and that's not the only thing to be paying attention to. And that's the one thing I think we both want to get across is like, it's
yeah,
all fine and well. We love that for you, and we love that for your books. But are you really looking at the comprehensive plan of what success for your book looks like? Not just in the here and now, flash in the pan bestseller badge, but moving forward as well. Is it opening the doors you wanted to open? Is it creating that community of readers that you want it to create? Really thinking outside of that and not having, I worry, because I've seen it, that once the bestseller status is reached, they're like, we've done it. I'm done. Now my book's going to sell like hotcakes. And you're like, au contraire.
oh,
That's
good.
not how this works. What do you
No,
tell
no.
authors
Yeah.
about that continuation of effort
What I
after
tell
they kind of reached
authors,
what they thought was the apex of their journey?
yeah. Well, I'm writing my own books this year about this topic, and it's not about, just reaching that mountain. There's so much more. I think what it comes down to is this. When you and I mentioned bestseller status, that is only one possible outcome, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what I have been telling authors is to stop thinking about marketing being an extra job, right?
Mm.
I think that's the problem. At the core of the problem, we talk about confusion and pressure and anxiety and exhaustion. We talk about all of those things, but those are symptoms of the very real problem. The core problem being that people just don't know how to approach marketing effectively in a way that makes it less about being, um, manipulative is not the right word, but I think that the reason people are struggling is because they're so like, well, how do I like get those readers? How do I get those
Yeah.
followers? How do I get those sales? And that those are none of those are the right questions, right? So I think that's really what I tell them. I say, let's take let's take like 20 steps back to
Slow
before
down,
you
just
wrote
slow down.
this book, right? And let's really I always ask authors, the first thing I say to them is, tell me about you. Tell me, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Right? Because this is where anyone listening today, hopefully this will be helpful for you. Answer that question for yourself. If you are an introvert, then obviously I wouldn't recommend that you start going on stages and podcast interviews. I'm not saying you cannot do those things. I'm just saying that recognize who you are and how you feel
Yeah.
comfortable connecting to people you don't know. Because think about it, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're connecting to people we do not know, but hopefully people who love what we've written, right? And so that's the warm connection there. That's the thing that you can build an entire relationship on. So anyway, answer that question. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Because if you're an extrovert, you better start making some lists, podcast episodes, speaking engagements, keynotes, conferences, events. I mean, it's endless. Now, I'm not saying the introverts don't have a lot of options, but they are different. They are different, and they're going to feel so much better and so much easier, blogging and you can do obviously other people's blogs, and
Yeah.
um, you can do videos without your face, and there are other things that can be done that will feel really good for you. So let's think about that, Karlyn. I think you'll agree that comfort is really key, right? You and I said we're going to be vulnerable today, but all of our authors have to be vulnerable, but they don't have to hate it. There is a
Yes, they
way to
don't have to
make it
hate it.
better.
It doesn't have to feel like a chore that you're dreading, and I always tell authors is if you make it enjoyable, that is your best chance at being consistent, and like it or not, especially in the social media lens, and that's the lens that I'm always looking through when it comes to marketing, because that's just like the vertical I paid the most attention to,
Right.
is that consistency is going to continue to serve you well because it's predictable. The algorithm knows what's coming, they understand, and you're kind of training your algorithm to show you to your people. The other thing I'll say about this is, showing up exactly to your point as you are and trying some new things. You do have to be vulnerable. You do have
Yeah.
to, you know, show up in a way that feels natural, but also have it map back to your goals. And that's the part that is always feels kind of like a gap when I'm talking to clients. I'm like, great. And they're like, well, I don't really want to be on video. I'm like, okay. They're like, I want to hang out on Instagram though, but I don't want to be on video. And I was like, that's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, my friend, because right now, just the way that Instagram is behaving, they want video. And yes, you can do faceless video. Just know that building the trust through a screen like this is the fastest way to that trust. So it's like set the goal, map the self-awareness, and then you might have to kind of adjust as time goes on. But I think in this world, I think it's so cool that we can just like press
Yeah.
a button and be like, we here. like
Yes,
I
of
just
course.
I just
Of
people
course.
just always want to undersell that and they're like, oh, social media is such a chore, or showing up is such a chore. I'm like, in the old days, you had to take an ad out in the paper
Oh,
or in the
right.
yellow pages that half of the people used as step stools in their kitchens. Like they never they never
Right.
scrolled through it. And now we have the opportunity, and I think that's the biggest word here is opportunity to share our books, our thought leadership, our fantasy lands, our with people who genuinely want to hear it. And the algorithms are getting very good at serving that content to people because it's no longer
Right.
just who you follow. It's
Right.
about what the people on the internet are interested in. So if they're
Right.
interested in a certain fantasy land fiction read, you are going to show up on their feed consistently. And
Right.
that's even if you don't follow them. Perfect example, Geneva Rose, she's an author. She writes thrillers, The Perfect Marriage is
I've read them. They're good.
they're like, whoo.
Yeah.
So I don't even follow her on Instagram, but she pops on my feed every now and again when she's in a Barnes and Noble, and she's literally twirling through the Barnes and Noble. Her husband's filming her,
Oh,
and
wow.
she's like, you know, here she goes, like almost like a and like narration of her, signing it, and then she's done, and she takes a bow, and then she goes like just like robots off. He's doing the sound. It's consistent. It's episodic. It's predictable, and I
Right.
watch it every single time.
Interesting. Yeah,
It
you're
makes me
well, that's
want to
interesting.
relate to her.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
who she was until she popped up on my feed,
Right. Right.
and now I'm, like, in Target, like, in the hall like, I'm like, "Is she here?" Like,
That's a
I'm in
nice
Barnes& and Noble. "Is she here?" You know?
That's a great example, and that's a good point, is that you can also, as a writer or author, I say writer and author a lot because people that
Yeah.
are listening to this may not be published yet, but almost everyone has something that makes them. Really a quirk, a thing, a way you laugh, a thing. And this is why I always go back to who are you? Because that's the real key to everything.
Mm.
There is, like when I went to film school many years ago, they say every story's been told, but it hasn't been told by you. I love that saying. I know you
Mm.
probably heard it, but it just really applies. And everything has been marketed in the world, but it hasn't been marketed by you. And when it is marketed by you, what does that look like? And really open yourself up to so many more possibilities than bestseller status. There are so many ways you can do it. Like, what do your friends say about you? What do your family members say about you? What do they love about you? What do they tease you about? What are your favorite things? I mean, I think some authors share that chocolate is their favorite thing or coffee is their favorite thing. That
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it is.
That
Um,
relatable pull.
yes, whatever is like really you. And so I think that's a key. And shifting your perspective is a key. I'm kind of reviewing what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
But you were saying something that I thought was really brilliant about about how different people want different things, goals. Because I think you're absolutely right. Your goals are important. But even the word goals, just like bestsellers, stress people out. So maybe just think of marketing as connection, right? And
Mm.
how can you best connect every single day that you show up? And offline, I talk about offline a lot because online is very stressful for people.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's crazy
yeah,
the
yeah.
bridge that online has to offline and offline has to online.
Mm-hmm.
I get frustrated with some of these, like, more well-known thought leaders, and they're like, "I grew my Instagram in 40 seconds by 40,000 people," and you're like,
What?
"Okay, here's all the tactics that I did," and they're
Right.
leaving out a very specific tactic, and
Hmm.
that is standing in front of rooms as the authority full of
Right.
people,
Right.
and the
Right.
only continuation for that group of 300, 1,000, 3,000 people is following you on Instagram. And
Right.
so I think
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
super frustrated because I'm like, "You're saying all these
Yeah.
tactics, but you're missing the key one that's grown your audience exponentially is because you're showing up as the authority in the front of the room." And so I'm like, "Meh, tell them the truth." Like,
Well, I
um,
have a problem with the word tactics to begin with, and I hope that
yeah.
even everything that you and I are talking about today, for anyone listening, is really about, some unsolicited advice that we hope is helpful, and ideas and perspective shifts, because tactics are very, very tricky. Always, you don't know. Like Carlin said, how did they start that? What did they do before they ended up with that ridiculous number of? Well, more power to them. It works, but important to remember that, yeah, there's something else sometimes behind the scenes.
Yeah.
um what else is there?
Well, yeah, this has been amazing.
Okay.
Where can people continue the conversation with you?
Well, we are on Substack. We're building our Substack, so hey, I'm so happy. This was wonderful that Substack made this easy for us. But yeah, the Book Biz Insider podcast is launching soon, and I'm
Yay.
so excited about that. So you'll get some more of what I shared today, a lot of advice, insights, inspirational, motivational ideas, hopefully that will help you wherever it is that you are in this wonderful journey.
Yes, I love it. And you can follow me on LinkedIn and on Substack. I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. and Instagram for the Jack Russell Terrier energy. Is what
Yes.
I have over there. That's a
And
hyper
LinkedIn.
energy have.
How could I not say LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
Thank goodness for LinkedIn. Guys,
That's how we met.
we met on LinkedIn and we had such great synergy from the very first conversation. I'm so happy that I met you on LinkedIn. It wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened without LinkedIn. So, yes,
Yeah.
it works. It's amazing how it works.
Hang out with us over there. We'll put all the I'll make like a blog or something or whatever they call it over here. A stack. I don't even know what they call it over here. We'll make a
I
we'll
think
make
it's
a
a stat.
thing.
Yeah.
We'll make a post and we'll give you all those details. But thank you so much, guys, for being here and for hanging out on the replay, which I think is most of where people will be consuming this. And be sure to follow us. We'll see you
Yes.
around the internet. Bye for
Yes,
now.
absolutely. Bye for now.